What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good Saturday. A lot of college football today. Huskies obviously not playing. They played last night. A lot of good pro football tomorrow as well. But it's a funny little weekend, right? Because you've got the Seahawks and you've got the Huskies. They're just not playing on the weekend. The Huskies went early. The Seahawks go late. So we're all off our schedules a little bit, right? Usually I would have posted the pregame Seahawks video this morning. Couldn't do it because we don't have the final injury report yet. And usually I would be streaming the Huskies game later tonight, but there's no Huskies game to stream. So it's a little bit of a funny weekend here, but to fill the time while we're waiting for the final injury report to come out to get an idea of what we're actually looking at for that Monday game, I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about a little bit lately because I can't shake the feeling, and this could just be coincidence, this could just be happenstance, it could just be, how should I put this, perspective bias. It kind of feels like over this first month of the season, the Seattle Seahawks injury reports are not moving in the way that things were anticipated to move. And that could just be an effect of the way the Seahawks choose to talk about injuries this year, which is to say, they don't talk about it unless they have to. The Seahawks have very clearly been making a concerted effort to tell the public nothing until the reports come out because they have to. So it could just be a thing where they're told to blow off every injury as being insignificant, and then they'll just deal with the actual repercussions later. But so far, it does kind of feel like every injury lasts a little bit longer and has a bigger effect than anticipated. And again, I don't mean to make this a bigger deal than it actually is, but, Ken Walker was like the first one, right? Ken Walker gets dinged up in that first game. After the game, he says, "Oh, it's nothing. It's fine. I'm good." And I know players tend to say stuff like that no matter what. But then he misses the next two games. And by the way, we don't even know if he's going to play Monday. We think he will, but he ends up missing two games because of that. You've got the Jerome Baker injury, right? And I know that's a hamstring, and the nature of a hamstring injury is always a little different, but nobody really talks about it, right? Everyone just kind of blows off the Jerome Baker injury as like not being that big of a deal. They brush it off, and then boom, he's missing a couple of games. We'll see what happens with Nwosu, but he certainly was not expected to miss a full 4 games. So if he does end up missing this weekend, or this Monday rather, that would be beyond expectations because the expectations were set when they did not place him on injured reserve right after the injury. So I could just be imagining things. It's like Boye Mafe too, although Mafe's playing, granted. But Mafe can't get off the injury report. He's missing a ton of practice time now. Maybe that's not that big of a deal. I don't know. But feels like things are not moving the way that they're moving for other teams. And I know not all injuries are created equal. But it just feels like there's something going on here. And there's a temptation to chalk it up to just bad luck. Like the team is getting a lot of significant injuries early on in the season. But do you guys think there might be a little bit of what some people would call load management at play here? So, I'm a big basketball fan. I don't know how many of you guys watching this video are, but if you watch basketball and you follow the NBA right now, you know what load management is because every team in the league practices it. It's this idea where nobody's really playing 82 games. Every team plays 82 games, but only a few players, very few, actually play 82. In fact, they're not even getting to 80. They don't get to 75. Some of them get to 70. But that's if they're very, very lucky. If they're very, very fortunate. Realistically, even if you're a great player, you're looking at playing 65 games. And it's not because you got hurt. It's not because you're always going to twist your knee. It's not because you're always going to injure your shoulder. It's not because you're going to break a finger or something like that. It's because in the NBA, teams have learned the best thing that you can do is just give your players, no matter who they are, no matter how good they are, how important they are, how good a shape they are, games off. And I think an ideal season for a lot of these players would be somewhere around 68 to 70 games. maybe. And most of them don't even get to 65 because somewhere in there they suffer a real injury. But that's load management, and that's the climate the NBA is in right now. Very few players play every game. Even the best players are missing almost a quarter of the season just because they got to rest. And NBA coaches and NBA front offices clearly believe it gives them the best chance to be the best version of themselves come the postseason. So you look at the NFL right now, right? You're looking at all these injuries that happen pretty much every week. You're looking at Thursday games that often turn into like body bag games. And every team has to play at least one Thursday game pretty much, right? If you're a relevant team, at least you're playing Thursday games. Some teams, I think, get more than one. So you're doing all that. Is load management what's going on with these Seahawks? And what I mean to say by that is when there is an injury, do they milk it a little bit more? Do they push it a little bit further than they need to? To just say, we're going to be extra cautious here. You were going to miss a game, you're going to miss 2 games. You weren't going to miss a game, you're going to miss a game. We're going to really, really take it easy here. We're going to give you a bunch of practices off. We're going to possibly hold you out of a game that we need you in to win. And basically, we're going to exercise load management. The league has recently added a 17th game. We know they're going to add an 18th as soon as they can. Obviously, we're not there yet, but we know the 18th game is coming. And I remember when that 18th game was being brought up, there were some players that were like, yeah, if they add that 18th game, look for a lot of teams to start implementing literal load management the same way the NBA does. And this year, the Seahawks have a new coach, a young coach, who might be looking at things a little bit differently. Maybe he's looking at a product like the NBA and thinking, hey, they're doing this. Football players get beat up more than basketball players, right? They don't play as much. Granted, I understand that. But NFL players are getting in car wrecks every week. Sometimes even more than a car wreck, it feels like. They're throwing their bodies into giant men over and over and over again over a 3-hour game. They're going to have a harder time holding up than even the NBA players. So do you think that maybe there's a little bit of going overboard with protecting these players right now, even if it costs the team a game or two, knowing that they will hopefully have a better product ready to go for the postseason at the end of the year? And obviously, the downside here is, unlike in basketball where you have 82 games, you only have 17 in football. And that's a big difference, right? In you could have a really good team in football and lose 2 games that you weren't supposed to lose, maybe because you don't have some of your key players, and you don't make the playoffs. You just kind of get hosed because your 11-win team turned into a 9-win team. You don't get in. In basketball, it's a lot harder for that to happen. If you're a good team, you're going to get in. If you're a team worth of crap, you're going to get in, especially with the play-in tournament now, where pretty much everybody can get in as long as you're playing well at the end of the year. So, do you think that maybe there's a little bit of understanding that this season's just become too long for these players to be expected to hold up into December and January and February? And if there is a little bit of that going on here, I wonder how much of this is going to catch on, and I wonder how much the league is going to appreciate it. Because I can guarantee you the NBA doesn't love having all these games, some very good games, some very important games, played without their superstars, without their stars, without their best players. They don't like having games where the bench is empty out. They don't like having games where both teams sit their star player, knowing that it has nothing to do with a specific injury. It's just generic rest. So, I will say this, and I think this needs to be said. Last year, 2023, the Seattle Seahawks, if you look at the early part of the season, they actually started out pretty well on defense. Let's focus on the defense for a second here, right? Like, you look at that first Rams game, it wasn't a good game defensively because they lacked pass rush, but the tackling was good. Like, the team was tackling pretty much fine early on. And they were downright elite from week 4 to week 6 or week 7 or so. They were playing great football. And everything seemed fine. And then as the games went on, you got into the midseason, you got into the late season, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. They couldn't stop the run anymore. And by the end of the year, they couldn't tackle anybody. Like, we remember that Pittsburgh game. That game may have gotten Pete Carroll fired, and you gave up almost 500 yards to Mason Rudolph and one of the worst offenses in the league. The Steelers' offense was, I think, bottom 7 last year, and they went into your building and destroyed you. So maybe people need to look at things like that. Maybe the perspective needs to be, yeah, we're playing well right now, but we're not going to be playing well at the end of the year unless we plan ahead. So that's kind of my glass half full perspective here. And it's not even really glass half full, because regardless of the reason why some of these players might be struggling to make it back onto the field after getting hurt for the Seahawks, we still need them. And it's still going to really hurt in some of these games not having them, like, say, this upcoming Lions game. But it is worth noting that there was a clear negative effect on the Seahawks team as the year went on last year, and maybe some of this stuff is trying to combat that. And at the end of the year, if we're looking up and we're saying, hey, Nwosu didn't have to play the first month, now he's much more ready to go. Oh, Jerome Baker got to miss most of the first month, but now he's still got his legs underneath him. That'll be pretty worth it, right? As long as we still make the playoffs. So maybe this is just the way things are going to be in this sport going forward. We'll see. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. More stuff coming later.